Tron Ares in 3D. Now, this felt more like a sequel or prequel to Blade Runner rather than Tron Legacy, a bit more of a side quest than a follow-up, less of a movie and more of an experience. It is a thumping music video giving up theme park roller coaster rides through a matrix environment of endless derivatives. Now, as some of you longtime viewers may know, I enjoy an occasional 3D movie, but I can't remember the last time I saw one that absolutely had to be seen in stereo. Usually the 3D treatment enhances what is already working in a movie. There is nothing about Avatar or Pixar or any Marvel movie that is not being communicated if you had watched it flat. If you had not seen Ares in 3D, I would suggest you haven't actually seen this movie. The effect so deeply pulled me into the world that I stopped watching and started living inside of this. Many reviews have taken shots at the story, the script. Now, yeah, the dialogue is incidental. This could have been in Chinese and I would have enjoyed it all the same. Everything happens just in time, often literally. There are leaps of logic, inconsistencies, and arcs that just aren't very archy. But what these plot addicts miss is that this is what makes the movie hypnotic. It helps the brain surrender. The scenes reminded me of set pieces in a rock concert. Take this barrage of holograms. The images come roaring in. You are inside of this whirlpool of images. And the 3D works so well, it helps give this bewildering sense of being inundated with information. The Ares guy is gazing wide-eyed at all of this, and that is the setting. That's your home for a few minutes while the music blazes and the light dances. It just feels like wonder, and that is exactly what the character is doing. He's wondering, he's curious, he's absorbing it all. You just don't need a barrage of exposition or setup. It just is what it is. We also get an interesting point of view shots from the Ares character, showing the world in a stereo virtual space, I guess you could call it, with Terminator-like information statements layered on. Although that alone was fun in stereo, the real treat was seeing different elements of the world put into different resolutions depending on what he was looking at. It's actually a true representation of how we actually look at the world as points of novelty that we later misremember as a singular picture. The separation of space really drove home the idea that we are all just discrete units of information. In the same scene, we also get these wonderful rain effects and a starry interaction with some glow bugs floating around in the air. The 3D here is constantly giving us something to chew on and giving us a reason to look deep into the screen and just wonder what it's like to be there playing with a glow bug. The action is beautiful as well. These bright, solid red lines are such a pleasure to watch. Like with this car, they just slice right through the screen and communicate the stereo experience so well, especially against the backdrop of a mundane gray city. The stereo adjusts to hyper stereo when we take to the skies and see big things, and there are many stereo just wow moments. The direction is always looking for these frameable shots and pop-outs at multiple points in the movie, which are rare to see in these modern conversions. Though discs do come flying out, the real pop-out star was the Tron version of a transporter. This is essentially a laser cannon that was always shown pushed well outside of the screen. Now, was that an analogy of escaping the virtual world into the real world, or were they just making the most of a pointy thing? I'd like to believe it was the former. The lasers, which somehow created 3D printed objects out of air, they always put on a dazzling show, although the resulting meshes often got lost in stereo and just came across as a pile of mush rather than a true stereo representation of scaffolding. But there was a visit to a storage area that had a wall of newspaper clippings and photos. In a lesser stereo movie, we would just see that wall as a flat wall. But here, I felt I could make out every curled and crumpled edge. There isn't a mundane 3D moment here. Even the talking heads usually take place in very deep rooms with all the furniture given very nice definition. The music, which seemed ever present, was rarely fast, and more importantly, felt perpetually unresolved, always expectant of something, but never quite getting there. It gave off an effect that felt like silence, a haunting silence. At one point, I found myself wondering if Ares had actually said anything for the past hour, but it wasn't so much a question as a declaration that I did not care. The whole thing was such a wonderful, sweeping dream. I found myself lost in my own thoughts. Yet I wasn't disinvested. The plot made its moves without debate. They were almost like clouds crossing over my view of a sun rising. I saw images and shapes in them. They took me to places in my past and perhaps even my future. But where they came from and where they went just didn't seem relevant. Story-wise, it is what you make of it. For me, it felt like an allegory of escaping hell. In the past, the word evil was not about someone's character, but something that causes toil. And what made Satan particularly evil is not by being mean, but by establishing a purpose, your purpose, and accusing you of not living up to it, creating this cycle of working until you're exhausted and then you drop back down into that accusation. And I saw a movie here that explored escaping that kind of relationship it had with Ares' creator. There's a strange sentence in the New Testament that goes like, rarely will anyone die for a righteous person, though for a good person someone might possibly dare to die. It's kind of one of these phrases that few people can make sense of, but I think it means that we just can't have sympathy or regard for someone that is infallible. Our main character was willing to die for people who, at the end of it all, had no expectations for him. And there are so many more illusions here to play with. There's a tree with fruit, a promise of eternal life, a mother and son that could represent a religious order, or maybe not. You might see a different cloud float by.